Conspiracy theories and conspiracist thinking have a long history. Each new century, decade, year sees new tales emerge which purport to provide alternative explanations to events and phenomena which most of us thought were quite obvious. From whether Shakespeare wrote his plays, to whether Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, to whether jet fuel can melt steel beams. Conspiracist activity certainly seems to have increased in recent years. Anti-vax, anti-lockdown, anti-5G and anti-Great Reset talking points have become practically avoidable online and sometimes offline too. But over the past 6 months, many within these movements have gained a new obsession: 15-minute cities. To the urban planners who originated the concept, the idea behind 15-minute cities is fairly mundane. The suggestion is simply that city governments should try to ensure that all residents live within 15 minutes of essential services such as doctor surgeries, schools and shops. To conspiracists, however, the popularisation of this concept has become evidence of a global plot to make it illegal to go beyond the end of one's street. To find out more about the anti-15-minute city movement and what makes its supporters tick, I sat down with Mooncat, who recently spent some time talking with some of the movement's more enthusiastic members at a protest in Oxford. Hello, Mooncat, and hello, Badger the cat. Both cats. How are you today?
I'm good. Badger's going to offer some compelling insights on the podcast today. Oh no, he's already off. He's already had enough.
Real hot takes. There is a lot of buttons for a cat to
I know.
sort of enjoy.
It's not good. He just loves to press as many buttons as he possibly can and just being as annoying as possible and like make my mic slam into my face.
That you actually do have like a full like kind of Starship Enterprise like music stuff.
Yeah, this is like my streaming setup. I've not Badger. Everything's still sort of laying around from my stream that I did on Saturday. So yeah, it's all set up right now. But yeah, I have my push, my MIDI keyboard, my machine's here still. Everything's out still because I haven't cleaned everything up yet. But
I feel under equipped. But thank you for agreeing to join me. I've started this. The whole thing of doing podcasts has been slightly weird. Of me being like, why would anyone give up any time to talk to me? And everyone, it turns out people are really nice.
Oh no, it's nice doing podcasts. It's like having a nice little chat with a friend, isn't it? Like, but there's an excuse to do it. So
yeah,
and other people can listen if they want, you know.
Yeah. And hello, if anyone is listening.
I'm sure they are.
Today we're talking about 15-minute cities. The way we got, so you've recently made a brilliant video about this, which we'll get onto in a minute. But the way we got talking about it was that I'd posted some screenshots from the app Nextdoor. Which, how familiar are you with Nextdoor?
I am on Nextdoor, but I hadn't had any of the crazy 15-minute city people on mine.
Oh, do you live in like a normal place?
In a normal place. Where are you based?
So I'm in Plymouth.
I didn't think you. Oh, I don't know why. I thought you were like from Norwich or somewhere. I don't know why.
No. We have. So I joined it. I mean, yeah, we must have a particularly imaginative Nextdoor user base.
Actually, on the day we did see some people like who'd come up from Devon, which is nearby, right?
Wow. Yeah. Plymouth is like in Devon, which is like not. It's not a direct train. I know that maybe they drive. Maybe that's part of the like 15-minute city conspiracist vibe is like that you drive everywhere. But it's not like super close. But I moved house like maybe 2 years ago now. And I was like, I will join. I was like, I think the pitch of Nextdoor is quite nice. For anyone who is listening that is not not like me reaching middle age and being like, oh, I need to find out what my neighbors are up to. It's like an app where I guess it's meant to be like the neighborhood group chat, but it's like there's no like
Mm,
gatekeeper, I guess. Like if there's like a WhatsApp group, I guess you've got to know the person that administrates the WhatsApp group. So like, and I think it's quite a nice idea of like what if we did social media, but it's based around like the streets near you and the
yeah.
neighborhoods. But it sort of I feel like what has actually happened is that all of the people who the sort of like people who would usually use that kind of thing either already have a WhatsApp or a um or are like otherwise socially connected through like schools or like the
Mm,
football club or like um other like community groups that they're part of. And so at least where I live, it ends up having like a really weird demographic. The weird feels mean, but like a um what's the like a a sort of mostly a demographic of people who usually through not the fault of themselves like don't have a huge amount of like social connection. And so
mm.
it's got a slightly weird like what do you just get like normal posts on Nextdoor when you log in?
Mine's mostly missing cats, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Mostly
yeah.
missing cats and the odd person going, "Where can I find a good roofer?" It's pretty
Yes.
boring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, like tradesperson kind of like
Yeah.
recommendations seem to be
Mm,
a really big thing. But yeah, also for some reason near me is like 5G conspiracies and recently 15-minute cities has been like the big
mm,
thing. Um uh my favorite post was a guy who was like apoplectic about the idea that like they the establishment or whoever don't want him to be able to go into Plymouth City Centre. Which I don't know if have you ever been to Plymouth City Centre?
no.
Like it's not like it's not like some like promised land that you're like it's like, oh, would you like to go to a charity shop and get a new phone case and like there's a cinema, I guess that's nice. I like going to the cinema. But I really enjoyed the fact that this guy was like, they're gonna stop me going to Sports Direct. Um but it does seem to the 15-minute city thing more generally does seem to have just taken like I feel like it was like growing slowly and has now just exploded.
Yeah, yeah. I think they just needed something to jump on after COVID, after they couldn't pump all of their energy into COVID lockdowns anymore. And
Yeah.
they seem to be sort of grasping onto anything that sort of used the word lockdown because they thought like basically their theory is that the COVID lockdowns were just like a practice for the actual real lockdowns.
Mm.
And the actual real lockdowns that are going to go on forever are the climate lockdowns. And um, so they don't believe that climate change is actually happening and is a real thing, and they think it's all just a hoax to get everyone to be slaves. Basically, they won't allow you to do anything. You're going to be locked down into your small little communities, and nobody's going to allow you out. And like, the, yeah, the traffic filtering they're putting in place is like barely anything right now, but they think it's it's a kind of slippery slope theory
Slippery.
that they all think. Yeah, they think they're just being trained slowly um to like stay in these like 15-minute prisons.
I think
Um,
like the in the brilliant video you made, which is on the feed the
feed
machine,
feed the machine. Yeah.
um is like that really came across that like mix of how this like tiny thing that is at its core has become like a kind of um just glue that's like just stuck loads of stuff that is seemingly sort of disconnected to it.
Mm.
I mean, like, I guess for anyone listening that doesn't know, that's like, what are they talking about completely? What like is 15? Like, what is? I suppose what's the actual thing?
Okay, yeah, I can
Then let
explain what it is.
then let's like spiral out to the like all the other stuff that's kind of got glued to it.
Yeah, so basically Oxford at the moment, I believe they have uh they put in they put in a trial of 3 LTNs, which stands for low traffic neighborhoods.
Hmm.
And they've been in place I think for a year or so now. That's the thing though, like that I tried to look this up so I could be sure, but it's
Mm.
actually really difficult to find solid information on what they're doing. Um,
Because, like, local council,
they're so
like,
bad at communicating.
and it's like, it's just not a big, like, I don't know, like, in any other context, it's probably not a big deal, like, if it hadn't blown up.
Well, yeah, yeah, like, this is the kind of shit that, like, people don't normally really care about anyway, I suppose, but
Yeah.
still, like, I think the fact that they've communicated to people about it quite badly has sort of added to the whole, conspiracy that boomed out of it. Um, yeah, I do definitely put blame on, like, local councils for this in Oxford and, Oxford County Council as well.
Mm.
Um So yeah, it's quite hard to find information around what actually happened, but from what I understand, they at the minute they're trialing the LTNs and they're going all right. So I think what they're planning on doing is adding more of them. And they'll do that. They'll enforce them by having these traffic filters, which are cameras which allow they don't allow personal cars through, personal diesel or petrol cars, but they will allow electric cars, vans, taxis, and like carers. I think people can apply to have to be exempt from them as well, like
Yeah.
carers and stuff like that. Basically, like, yeah, everything absolutely necessary can will be exempt from it. That obviously they'll allow buses through and any public transport. Um,
'Cause looking at the, like, the sort of brief bit of looking at it I've done, it looks like it's not, it's sort of not actually the 15-minute, like, 'cause, like, the 15-minute city concept being the idea that you can, like, go to a shop and you can go to the doctors and you can go to, there's a
mm,
school
yeah,
within 15 minutes. But it feels like the Oxford thing in particular, which seems to have become the weird, like, center of gravity for the conspiracy theory stuff around it,
mm,
seems to, like, it's more like LTNs. Like, you're like, it seems like the main thing is they don't want people driving through residential areas unless they have to.
exactly,
So
yeah,
essentially, you go, rather than, me being in my neighborhood and I need to get to the neighborhood over there, and I sort of drive down your street through to get there. The
mm,
suggestion is that I go back to, they've got quite a good ring road. I go
yeah,
out to there, go round, come back
yeah,
into the city from the other side.
yeah.
And, like, I think, like you say, the thing about it being, like, really difficult to find information is that it doesn't seem hugely.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a very boring thing to build an entire conspiracy theory around.
Which
But yeah, you can still drive anywhere you want in Oxford. Um, it's just that you will have to use the ring road that they've built around the outside because they're trying to keep emissions out of the center of the town, especially in residential areas, because they're
mm,
actually really bad for you to breathe in all the time. Which is
and it,
another thing that they don't really think about is that you're constantly breathing in
and
all
in many
all of
ways,
these emissions.
it's like the, people are like, well, why don't kids play out in the street anymore? And it's like, well, because
That's another thing, like,
people are
yeah,
driving
it
through all the time.
reduces it reduces deaths, it reduces injuries from, yeah,
Mm.
people just, like, plowing into pedestrians. Um,
It is interesting, like, so I've been quite surprised on YouTube over the last, like, few years. And I'm gonna try and do an episode of the podcast about this, but, like, the ways in which people have become really enthusiastic about city planning. Like, that's like a whole genre now
oh,
with,
yeah,
like,
I love it, I love it.
massive fan base, for something that, like, previously I think most people would have thought of as, like, a bit nerdy, a bit,
Yeah,
like, not super, like, my partner's granddad was a town planner, and, like, I guess we once went to a car park and he was like, "Yeah, I drew that." And, like, that's a sort of cool in, like, a, "Oh, yeah," but it's
yeah.
not like a rock star kind of thing. Um,
I mean, SimCity, like, think about it. People love those games. I love those games.
yeah, that's true. I do.
People are secret city planning nerds. Many people are, I think.
But it's just interesting how now also, but seemingly disconnected from that, people now also getting really angry about, like, city design.
Mm.
Um, I just particularly, yeah, it's the thing where you look at what the, I think there's a bit in the video you made where you went down to Oxford to get the project, and you, like, show, there's, like, just a clip of the, like, they're like planters, aren't they, essentially, with, like, some flowers or
Yeah,
whatever in them that,
yeah.
like, block the road. It's just so not, it doesn't have the dystopian vibes which you would,
You're imagining, like,
yeah.
huge cages around the LTNs
And
with, like
there's also, I mean, maybe let's, so before we get on to that, maybe let's like um to sort of weave a good thread and if anyone decides to listen, that like so the idea is that this has sort of been jumped upon by a whole bunch of conspiracy theorists online as like, I think, as you were saying a moment ago, like the start of the big like clampdown on civil liberties
Mm,
in many different ways. I think what's really interesting about what you're saying a moment ago, and what you sort of point out, I think right sort of towards the end of the video you made, is the like weird continuity from the lockdown stuff.
yeah,
Like it
yeah.
felt like when there's like almost like when there's like religious sects where they're like the world's going to end on, and they like set a date for the world to end,
Yes,
everyone
yeah,
gathers round, and then like it doesn't, and they
yeah.
have to go like, oh,
Okay, well, that wasn't the real one.
but I'm not wrong. I'm right, because actually I just like the XYZ
Yeah,
reason.
it's like QAnon and the storm. Like, the storm never happened,
Mm,
but they don't wanna let go of this community that they've built around Q, and
mm,
yeah, basically, like, the whole thing was, like, they built a great community around Q because it's basically, like, a huge puzzle that everybody came together and tried to, like, decrypt together, and they built,
like
like a
Wordle.
massive friend group around it, and
Like,
yeah, this is like, yeah, it's a very, very similar thing. They all think that there's, like, loads of different bits that they've all connected together like a jigsaw,
mm.
and and yeah, there was a large section of the video where we sort of took clips of people who were saying that, like, it all fits together like a jigsaw. If you just look into it, if you
Mm,
just start doing your own research, then you'll see when, human psychology looks for patterns, and
mm.
it dismisses anything that doesn't fit that pattern, and that's just why this stuff blows up, is because we have silly pattern seeking brains, and we just love to fit things together.
And it's interesting because like it's like critical thinking is obviously a good thing and something we try and like
Yeah.
promote, and like in many ways like the kind of education system sort of takes you through from like learning stuff to repeat it to like then piecing lots of bits of information together to then like um once you get to like A levels or college or university, that like it becomes more about like how do you look at different sources and like critique things, and like there's like like if you like squint, that's sort of what these people are doing. Like, and I think what any conspiracy theorist is sort of doing, right? They're sort of
Mm.
critically thinking about the world around them,
I mean,
but just with not a great
yeah.
like sense of like what makes for something reputable and not.
Yeah, I mean, they're right to be suspicious of, like, the World Economic Forum and what they're really doing.
Mm,
In my opinion, what they're really doing every year is just they know that capitalism works for them, but they know that it's also ruining the planet. So what they're trying to do is just create new marketing campaigns for capitalism every year
mm,
and calling it, stakeholder capitalism,
yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
that doesn't actually really work. And now they're sort of they're trying to inject all of the green stuff in it as well, because it's like, obviously that's a thing that they have loads of scientists telling them that, climate change is going to ruin the world, but that does also affect them as capitalists, because they need to ensure that the working class can still work for them, so they can carry on extracting their labor value from them. So it's
Mm,
like, you need to keep the working class, like, placated, basically. You need to make sure that their lives aren't ruined. You need to keep them happy enough, though, to, like, so that they don't rise up against you. You
d-
have to keep that balance, and I think that's what they're trying to do every year.
does it?
Whereas they think that there's this huge conspiracy where they're, like, growing babies underground and then, like, getting adrenochrome out of them and stuff like that. And it's like,
I mean,
no, like,
it's sort of the equivalent of like when I don't know, when like Absolute Vodka does like a Pride edition of like their bottle and it's got like a rainbow on it, I guess.
yeah,
But like sort of taking that as like the big, like that's a lot of the, WAF stuff is very like it's like there's a good episode of Succession where they go to like, it's not Davos, but it's like it essentially is.
yeah,
Um and it's just like, and it's quite a good representation of it in that it's some people doing like weird little courses about like how to be a good manager, and it's then other people going to like big presentations, which, like you say, are like, um BP aren't going to use plastic bags anymore or something like that. Like,
Mm.
and rather than doing sort of more useful things they could be doing to stop climate change. It is. I do find the 15-minute city thing really interesting in who its kind of like bad guys are. In that,
Mm.
like, World Economic Forum is sort of quite boring and mundane in many ways.
Yeah.
Um, and also local council. Like, I can't like I I don't know. I like local councillors in the UK are normally slightly boring people who are like sort of, it's like a part-time job. Like, I think it's mostly a part-time job if you're like a city councillor. Um, and there's something really funny about them being like in the minds of 15-minute city
Yeah.
people, being like these evil masterminds that are about to um
Yeah, the guy in Oxford who's like the main guy planning it from the council, he's had
mm,
actual death threats, like actual death threats from people.
wow.
And we tried to interview him for the video actually, but he didn't want to be interviewed. I guess I understand that. Like
Yeah.
when you sort of hear, "Oh, we're YouTubers and we want to interview you about this 15-minute city thing." Like if you've had death threats, you're probably going to
Mm,
be like, "You know what? I'm just going to like not." But but no, the other Labour councillor that we interviewed, he was really good.
mm.
So yeah, I'm glad we got him. But yeah, yeah, it's been mad. Like these, innocent council workers just like in the middle of all this, just yeah, he's probably scared for his safety.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not. I don't know. It's not. I don't know. Like, I think maybe in other countries, like being a local politician maybe has more like financial reward and like, but
Hmm.
I don't know. Like, because Oxford's not huge, is it? I don't know what the, because like
No, it's quite small.
it's like relative. Like, I think it's relatively well off, at least in parts. I mean, I suppose
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
it's got the
yeah,
universities, which probably give it a,
yeah. Very prestigious sort of.
like, I guess its
Yeah.
architecture is very nice, but I imagine it's not entirely super. Like, I'm sure that's not the case across the board.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, but I think I like, and yeah, like the thing with like, it's just some planters and the kind of thing that, yeah, normally you announce with like a sign that says next Saturday this road's going to be closed for like dot dot dot.
Mm.
Um, but so you went down to this protest to make this video.
Yeah.
Um, what, I don't know, what was your, like, what was that day like? Like, what was, I don't know the like map of Oxford at all. I don't know what the city centre's like, but like, what was it like, I guess, arriving there? Was it like like, I mean, how busy was it? I got a sense from the video that it was like
It was.
pretty rammed.
Yeah, we honestly had no idea what to expect before we turned
Mm,
up. We thought, like, because sometimes you try and make a video like that, and literally it's like 5 people who have turned up. So we were like,
mm,
okay, like even if it's like that, let's try and get something out of this. But we turned up like an hour before they were due to start.
mm.
And there were already people like hanging around, like, where is everyone? We want to go, we want to do this. They were really eager. And yeah, and we just had no idea what to expect. But yeah, as the day went on, just like so many people turned up. And there was a huge police presence as well. There was like police, loads of police on horses, even more
Mm.
police on bikes.
Bet
That's
they
the thing
hate
about Oxford City Centre. Yeah, that's the thing about Oxford City Centre. Though it's already so bad for cars anyway,
that.
because it's such an old city. That there's loads of different little windy roads on it that are just not good to have a lot of cars go up and down. Just
Mm.
just in a logistical sense.
I think
S-
bicycles are quite. I mean, I think my sort of sole point of evidence for this is the beginning of the Stephen Hawking film. I think he cycles a bike around, but I get the sense like people cycle quite a lot. In, I don't know.
They do. There's bikes everywhere. I had no idea, but when I got there, because I'd never been to Oxford before, there are bikes everywhere. Like loads of people bike anyway, and we'd obviously driven there,
Mm.
and we tried to park in the city centre and we couldn't. every parking space was like max 2 hours, and we were like, well, we need longer than that, so we had to like go out of the city centre again and park in this car park that was out just outside of the city centre and walk in. Like, it's so bad anyway for cars.
It's like it's just not the practical option anyway. Like,
Yeah, no, it's not.
because so was there like hundred? Like it looked like there was hundreds of people.
I would say it's really hard to
You top
predict. I
1,000?
don't
Not
know.
really.
Like, I reckon there was over 1,000,
Like quadrant
2,000.
out like in GCSE geography. Um, wow, like 'cause that is, and like how many people? Like, what was the vibe like? Was it because like I think like protests are often like there's often like an anger, but then sometimes it's like
Mm,
there's like a sort of there's like the thing you're angry at or you're trying to change, but then sometimes there's like within that because you're suddenly with lots of people that you sort of that are also
you
angry about
vibe
this.
with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you sort of get like a bit of a like
Mm.
oh a little bit oh a bit hopeful about the world around me. Like was
Yeah,
it?
it was definitely more the latter, like, it was more I found that when I was interviewing them, like, if you use sort of negative language with them, they didn't like that. Like I said to one person, she was telling me about a conspiracy, and
Hmm.
I mistakenly used the word conspiracy, where you can't use the word conspiracy. Even though
Mm,
it's a conspiracy, whether it's true or not, it's still a conspiracy. Like, some conspiracies are true. That just means people are conspiring. That's all it means. But because I said to her, like, oh, so like, when did you first like hear about this conspiracy? And she was like, it's not a conspiracy. I was like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said that.
yeah.
Ah, I'm so sorry. And then like she wasn't like on my side anymore after that. Um, but also, like, they don't like the word protest, they like demonstration. It's all about, you
Okay.
know, it's you gotta use sort of like positive language with them.
That's
It was
interesting.
very like community driven. It
Mm,
was very much like we're coming together, hope, community. It's all about truth and
mm,
positivity. It was, kind of like hippie vibes in that kind of sense. That a lot of them were just having a great time. They'd obviously like not seen these mates for ages, and they'd just come together. Like some of them were just pissed out their
yeah, yeah, yeah.
minds. There was a guy on a scooter. He's in the video actually. There was a guy on a scooter who had a massive PA speaker on the back of his scooter, and he was just blasting Bob Marley out. And there was just people like drinking and just like
There did
dancing
seem
in
to
the
be like a
street.
strong like hippie element.
I think there is to it, yeah. Have you heard about the, like, stand in the park thing?
No, I think there was you show a picture of it at some point in the video.
I think, yeah. I
Is
think
that
Jack
like
put that in at one point, yeah.
is that like a more
It's
hippie?
yeah, kind of. It came about during COVID, where these sort of more conspiracy-minded people just wanted a way to, like, meet up, so they set up
Mm,
this thing called Stand in the Park, and that's what the yellow flag with the smiley face on it is. Like,
okay. Yeah.
we sort of I think it comes from like rave culture originally, but they sort of co-opted it to be a symbol of this stand in the park thing now, where they all just sort of come together. And I think that's where like a lot of them have made friends. um but yeah, no, it was like super positive vibes, and all the people were like really nice as well. Like, you don't want to
Mm,
they're so nice to come up to you and like give their time to you, that you don't want to sort of dunk on them and be like, ha,
yeah.
can't believe you believe that. They're all really nice people, so
Were they like really up for? Because like when I think like when you said you're going out to do this thing, and I was like I didn't think I could do that kind of thing. Like I'd be really like but like people seemed really keen to like
yeah,
were they? Was
a
that?
lot of them were. Some of them weren't, because, they're very suspicious of any type of media.
Mm,
Some of them were holding up, like, banners about the BBC and how the BBC is, like, left-wing propaganda, and my friends who were filming with me, they have, like, proper professional-looking cameras. Like, a lot of people were just
mm,
literally going around with their iPhone interviewing people, but
yeah,
because they looked very professional, they were like, "Where are you from? What media company are you from?" And we were like, "Oh, we're just independent, from an independent YouTube channel." And after I said that, they were a bit more like, "Okay, okay, we'll talk to you," but they really don't want to talk to any like mainstream media people uh whatsoever.
that's
Um,
interesting. That just having kit that like you look like you know what you're
yeah,
doing is sort of
yeah,
like that's like suspicious in and of itself.
yeah,
So
yeah.
was there lots of people doing a similar thing, but in a like very, I don't know, was there lots of like independent?
Yeah, there were quite a few other YouTubers there. We saw a couple of like what the ones who we knew who they were. We knew they were like right wing sort of biased YouTube
Mm,
channels.
mm,
Um, but yeah, no, there were a few other media people there as well. Like a lot of people had like these little rigs where they were like live streaming the whole thing.
uh,
Yeah,
that's what, yeah, that's what like, that's what's weird when you see like internet people in
in the
real life.
wild.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, is that? I once
Yeah.
had the option to vote for Sargon of Akkad. I didn't, obviously, and that was like a really weird. It was when I lived in uh Somerset, and it was like the European elections, and he'd
Oh.
like joined UKIP or something, which I think they thought was going to be like a big deal. Like it was one of those where like someone from UKIP had spent a bit too much time online and was like, "This is going to be our big like break,"
Yeah.
and it was just such a weird two worlds colliding while I'm in this like village hall in Taunton, like waiting. I'm just like, this is.
Oh, Somerset as well. What a beautiful little place for Sargon of Akkad
I
to
I think it was
ruin.
European, so it's like when they do like or when they used to do like it would be like southwest, northeast, I guess. Not I don't know what the like um and I think he lived in Swindon. I think was
Mm.
is or maybe still does. Who no, unless he's moved.
Mm.
I've not kept up to date with him. Hello, I hope you're enjoying my chat with Mooncat. If you are, and you want to check out further installments of the show, then you might like to know that every single episode of Induction comes out a full 2 weeks earlier on my premium streaming service, Nebula. By now, you've probably heard of Nebula. It's a streaming service built by a bunch of the internet's finest educational creators. FD Signifier, Not Just Bikes, Jessie Gender, and, well, me. Alongside being ad and algorithm free, Nebula is packed with an ever expanding library of early access and exclusive content from your favourite creators. If you want to learn more about some actual city planning, for instance, you might want to check out City Beautiful's excellent Nebula original series, Great Cities, which reveals the ideas and histories which have shaped some of the world's most famous cities. And, as I mentioned at the top, both the audio and video versions of every single episode of Induction are released on Nebula a full 2 weeks before they make it to YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else. That's a full fortnight to feel that bit superior to every other listener. If you're interested in finding out more about Nebula, then I'd be particularly grateful if you'd do so by using our personal link, nebula.tv/induction. Using that link will ensure that you get the absolute best deal on Nebula at any given time. At time of recording, that's just $2.50 a month. So if you want to get access to all that good stuff while supporting me to make more episodes of Induction and more videos on my main channel, then you can do so by heading to nebula.tv/induction. Now, back to my chat with Mooncat. Because yeah, they're like watching the video, there was a strong like kind of hippie contingent, like, but what was there? What was the demographic? Like what
Old.
I was gonna say, it felt like I don't want to assume, like it felt a little bit older.
Yeah, like very old.
I'm finding online you've got about 2,000 people attending ish. Just
Oh,
for
really?
yeah.
That's
Oh,
good. I don't sound like I don't know why I'm so like, oh, well done them.
well done.
That's nice. That's nice. People turned out. To that, like it's not a big pro. Like I don't know. It's not like a million people marching against the Iraq War, is it? But it's like it's not 3 people in on a street corner.
It's enough to be heard, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Like so, it was like old-ish.
Yeah. Very. I mean, I think they were pretty much all boomers. I didn't even really see anyone my age, and when I did,
Really?
it was like one guy he was just there because he was curious. He wasn't part of the procession.
Mm.
Um, He was quite funny actually. He'd obviously just had a free day. He was in the video. He's the one where I was talking to him when the other guy ran up behind us and went, "Fuck her in right in the pussy."
Oh yeah, the guy that was just like, oh, really, like just looked like he'd gone for a wander and was just like, what is happening? Like,
Yeah. So he was yeah, he was cool, but he obviously just had like a free day and he decided just to chat to these people in this
mm,
protest all day, which is quite funny. We saw him later on and he just like joined the parade and he was just he was just chatting to people. Um but then yeah, and then the other two guys we saw that were at the end of the video where one of them was holding up that little piece of A4 paper that said he just scribbled "fuck
oh
cars"
yeah,
onto
yeah,
it.
that was
I love those guys.
that feels like another like that feels like a very online standoff between because I think Fuck Cars is like a subreddit, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Um, like that felt like a very like I enjoyed the fact they'd gone out as well.
Yeah.
Like the smallest counter protest.
Yeah.
Um,
Because the police, we talked to the police early on in the day, and we were like, "What are you expecting?" And they were like,
mm.
"Oh, we're expecting this protest, but we're also expecting a huge counter protest as well." And we are like, "Really?" And all we saw all day was like those two guys just on one street corner. With one of them, he just took like a letter and he scribbled "fuck cars" onto the back of it. And he was just holding it up.
'Cause it is,
So
yeah, like I enjoy a good bit of city plan. Like we're I think we're getting electric bikes in Plymouth soon. I'm like mildly excited about that.
nice.
But like I don't think it's like it would be a weird thing to do a like a counter protest for. Like it just doesn't feel like that
Yeah,
in my head.
exactly.
That's not where like that's not a box that can go in. If that makes
Exactly. Like, why would you go out and be like, "Yeah, I'm really for these traffic filter cameras." Like,
and because there's nothing like there's a certain amount of incoherence to the 10-minute cities conspiracy and like because it's such a weird disjointed amount of different things that have sort of got stuck together, it would feel like what would you be counter protest
mm.
like there's not like a really core like thing that they're driving.
No, it's like, yeah, it's when you have those anti-refugee protests. It's like there's a clear thing to like protest against,
Yeah, yeah.
like counter protest, like in support of the refugees. Whereas with this, it's like, how many things are you counter
Yeah,
protesting? This
yeah.
look, this entire smoothie that they've concocted up.
Just like protesting for the mental health of the poor like town planner who's because I saw one. I think there was a similar protest in the US somewhere. I can't remember where it was. And like one of the town planners like went down, and he was like, "Look, I worked on this document that you're all like." And it was interesting because they were all up in term and up in arms about Oxfordshire, England. That's a worst American accent, but like they were like, "Oh, it's all happening over there," and like this poor guy is just like trying to be like, "It's just we just sort of thought maybe there could be a corner shop near you," and he's like really trying, and they're just like really going for him. Um,
Which is ironically like such a British thing as well, isn't it? Like being
mm,
able to walk to a pub, get pissed
mm.
and walk home without having to get into a taxi. That sounds brilliant to me.
Yeah,
And
like
like walk to a corner shop and yeah, I don't have a pub in walking distance near me. Like I'd bloody love that.
yeah, there's a couple of quite big patches of land in Plymouth where it's like old Quaker land, I think it was. And so when they first built houses on it, there's like it's called an ordinance, I think it's called, that means you can't have like pubs on it because they were like Quakers or those particular brand of Quakers didn't drink. And like so there is patches where like it's like a 15-20 minute walk to a pub, and that feels really far and feels really like
Mm,
I don't know, like when if you're like just trying to meet up with a friend, feels like a big effort. Like suddenly just like popping around the corner is like um it's like a whole thing that you've got to think about and plan. And if it's that
yeah.
far, there's probably a hill, and that's not ideal. Um but yeah, there is a certain like I think that's the weird thing is that this feels like the like dream sort of the in a sort of era where it feels like we're often like dominated by like boomer nostalgia for like Like I often feel like the TV's like The Crown and Call the Midwife, where it's just like them listing off events that have happened in the
Mhm.
second half of the 20th century, and like where it's all like the Tory branding isn't make Britain great again, but often feels like there's like this lost land that we've lost a little bit. This kind of feels like that's what they're trying to create, is like that you might have a butcher and a corner shop
Yeah.
and a but it's sort of, because there is almost something slightly Americanized to it, I feel
Mm.
like I think in the video where the guy was talking about like freedom is having a set of keys,
Yeah.
and there's like a real hyper like individualism to it that
Yeah.
feels very like sort of don't tread on me kind of thing.
That those flags were there.
Oh really?
Yeah, we did see one of those flags. I don't know if he included the clip of it in the video,
Mm,
but yeah, definitely did see some of that. But yeah, there was aspects of that Americanization in there. I think a lot of them are like so patriotic that they don't even like that any sort of the Americanized stuff. So,
mm.
but I did see a bit of it. Like there was at least one guy there wearing a "Make Britain Great Again" red hat. Um,
Do you presumably like made himself? Is that a thing you can buy, or did he have to
It
like?
looked professionally made. I'm assuming you can buy them somewhere. Um, but yeah, there was a bit of that, but no, like I think the overarching patrioticness of these people sort of like stops them doing anything that looks too American.
Mm,
But yeah, no, there was definitely bits of it there where it's yeah, this hyper individualization was definitely like a part of it, even if they didn't want to brand it very Americanized. But
mm,
yeah, it's kind of it's like how you see freedom, isn't it? It's like I think these people, it's like why do you see freedom as having a set of keys to a
mhm.
car? It's like why do you see freedom as sitting in a load of traffic for an hour every day to get to and from work? How is that freedom? Surely freedom is not having to do that and having more freedom to have the time to yourself when you get home
Yeah.
to do whatever you want instead of sit in traffic. Like this you know, it's just like what do you count as freedom, you know?
It's very rare that I am in a car at a time when there is lots of, which is a huge luxury of like mostly working from home, um,
Mm.
and when I do work out of the house, it's usually close enough that I can cycle. But like, it sucks. Like just sitting in traffic and just like chugging
Yeah,
along,
when
listening
I had
to
a full-time
Heart
job,
FM.
yeah. When I had a full-time job, like yeah, it was easier for me to
Mm,
drive back, and literally every day I'd just be sat in my car for like an hour getting home or getting to work. Um, it was awful. Like
mm.
that's not freedom.
Yeah, I guess it's the one thing where I see why people like, I don't know. I've never been a big car person anyway, but like
Mm.
it's one of
I've
those where
sold my car now. I don't even have a car now.
like I can. It does make me see why people spend, like, that's when I go. I see why some people like spend a lot of money on that, because you're just in it all the time. So you do need
Yeah.
a
Want it to be comfortable and
good, like, yeah, you want,
heated.
yeah, um, which is, yeah, but I think, going back to the Americanism thing, it was interesting that from the shots that made it to the final cut, there wasn't any QAnon that I saw, actually, which, because that has spread a bit. Like, there's like big
Mm.
QAnon movements in like Germany, I think, which seems bizarre. But
Yeah, we didn't see. I kind of expected to see a bit, but they were wearing t-shirts that looked like they could have been Q, but they actually said O. And I never worked out what that meant. Did you
mm,
see those?
no, I don't,
It stands for something, but yeah, it's like they were wearing t-shirts with big O's on. I meant to look into that, but I never did.
because it did feel like there was like sort of everything else there. There was, I mean, the guy you chatted to who was like, oh, I was just chatting to someone down there, and then she started telling me the world was flat. Like, it
Mhm.
genuinely seemed like he was like, oh, I'll give it like I'll see what she's got to say, and then obviously it instantly went to something that was, and it was just like, oh, but like, because it felt like there was like 5G t-shirts. There was a lot of
Mm.
like the bit where uh in the edit there's like pulled out all of the like Holocaust illusions,
Yeah.
which are like, or like just awful, just like
Yeah,
Like just one of those where you're like, "What? You've really
that
gone down
that
a
was a
hole."
that was a bit more common than yeah.
Was that quite?
Yeah, like we did see the odd person with the Star of David, and it would say something about being unvaxxed in the middle of it, which
Yeah.
basically they think they're being persecuted in the same way that Jewish
Whi-
people were persecuted.
Which really is like, I don't know. Is that? Yeah, I just don't know how you get that alarmism from. Like, I think there's whole bits that watching through it and watching you talk to people, because I thought, like, I think and you were saying before we started recording that, like, I thought you like, I think it's a really difficult thing to do, that kind of vox pop thing where like you either go like one way, which I think quite often happens like on like stuff like the BBC and stuff where like they've asked a selection of people and it ends up making it sound really authoritative and like it is, you've spoken to three people and it can suddenly sound like it's the opinion of everyone in a certain place,
Mm.
and like that opinion is a good opinion or whatever. Or you can go the other way and I guess like sort of the Daily Show do, where they is it Jordan Klepper? Is that
Klepper,
the guy?
yeah.
And he very much does a send off, like send up kind of like, these people are a bit
Mhm.
stupid, like ha
Yeah.
ha ha. And I thought you did a really good job of like, I don't know, it like, and I suppose some of this comes in the edit as well, of like framing it in such a way that it felt like you were giving them a chance to talk in a way that didn't feel like you were like, haha, like here's a sort of flower with
Mm.
water in it, like, but also didn't, I don't know, but also picking out the things that were,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, like that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that.
mm,
But I had a really good time doing it just because it's just so like interesting meeting people, isn't it?
mm,
So many of them were just like, really interesting people. Um but yeah, it's what you kind of have to do is like they a lot of them want to talk, like I was saying, like some of them don't want to talk at all because they're like your media, your mainstream media. But like most of them did want to talk because it's kind of like therapy in a way. It's kind of like doing therapy with them on the street. It's like just allowing them to get whatever they want off their chests. And
mm,
loads of them were just not even talking about this specific thing. They just go off on random tangents where they just wanted to rant about something. Um
yeah,
like the guy with the cream egg in particular, like we talked to him for like way too long because he was just going on like random anecdotes from his life, and we just had, and he had this like entire book that he was like flicking through that was just full of these stories, and like I don't even know what point he was trying to make with it, but he flicked onto one page that had the cream egg on it, and I was like, what's that about, what's that? Because what you're trying to do is like get a good quote out of someone that you can use for the video.
mm,
And then once you've got that good quote, you kind of have to be like, okay,
thanks
you have to
you.
kind of politely get them to stop because they're just on one at that point and they just want to go and go and go and go. And like with him, I was like, okay, what's that cream egg about? And then he sort of did this whole anecdote about cream eggs that was nothing to do with the protest or anything to do with
It's like,
anything really.
for context for people listening, he's like talking about shrinkflation.
Shrinkflation, yeah. So
He's
I
got like a
so I had to
picture
say
of an
to
old
him,
one, and he's got like a
yes.
physical.
Yeah, so I had to say to him, "Okay, that's a nice anecdote about cream eggs, but what does this ruler mean?" And then at that point he got the cream egg out of his pocket and then he just put it on the page and he was like, "Look, shrinkflation." I was like, "Okay, thank you." Right. We're just gonna have to go now. But yeah, but really interesting people. Yeah, I'll
Because
call them interesting.
like, again, I think I've said this a few times. Again, it's sort of like, some of this maybe the way it's edited, but like it never felt, watching it, like you were having to like force stuff out of people.
You don't really.
They were
I
just
think
like, cool, I've got a mic, like a microphone, like great, like.
yeah. Yeah, you don't really like all you have to do is sort of I guess Louis through it a little bit, but
Mm,
if they sort of, get to the end of what they're saying, just kind of like maybe prod them a bit more like like just sort of hang on one thing that they've said that you think might get them to like go down a bit more interesting path.
mm,
So the thing you said about that, like, so do you think this is part of? You think that's connected in some way, or and that kind of thing? And then with it, pretty much with everyone, I had like a set question that I asked them. So like, do you think climate change is an emergency? Pretty much all of them said no.
mm,
Um, I asked them all like where they came from as well, just because like I was curious. Like loads of them were not even from Oxford. I think most of them were not even from
Wow.
Oxford.
Yeah,
They just come from everywhere.
there was one guy who was that you were chatting to who was just like, oh, it's actually really annoying that we've got this like sort of local
Yes.
issue that's like,
He was just genuinely annoyed just at the local council for like not listening
mm,
to his concerns. And there were a few people there who were like him as well. They were a minority, but there were a few people who were like him who was
because I
just like,
think
I don't think this is good for business.
there is like some, I think I don't know whether you there's like some logical criticisms, I guess, whether you sort of agree with them or not, like around like I think something like there's been a few bits of commentary on it where people have gone like, you know, if you can only drive through with an electric car and you can't drive through with a petrol car, is that a sort of regressive tax
Regressive
in some ways?
tax,
Because
yeah.
and you know, I like we I went to Bristol a few weeks ago, and like, to be fair, there's like no warning, and so I got there and it was like, welcome to the ULEZ zone, and I was like, oh shit. And I was like
Mm.
googling it, my partner was driving, I was like, oh okay, yeah, we're £9 down now, like from what. And so like, and so
Oh,
like it is like annoying, but like I was like, oh okay, we've like, I don't know,
so
fair enough.
a camera clocks that you've gone through, and then you somehow just get billed
Well, there was
automatically.
just like a sign, and then and then you have to go on the website and like pay for it. And I
Oh
was like,
yeah, I've been
oh,
through one of those kind ones
damn it. I was
before.
like, and I was like, maybe that's our fault
Yeah,
for not looking up,
actually,
but
that was
maybe I don't know.
that was in Bristol as well. Actually, I think
Yeah,
when I was when I went through one of those, but it was like for going over a bridge, I think. But yeah.
Oh, um, but like, but yeah, but I was like, I sort of get it. We've like, we have driven into this. We could have done a park and ride, like,
Mm,
and if I was doing that every day, I would probably know. But like, but that, you know, that doesn't stop it being like mildly, um, annoying. I think it was interesting what
mm,
you're saying about people just wanting to like, um, there's I don't know if you know, there's a channel called Medlife Crisis with a guy called Rohan who's like a doctor, and he does a lot of talking about like fake sort of fake medicine stuff.
mm.
And he talks about uh stuff like maybe not acupuncture, but stuff like what's the back one called, like
Yeah,
chiropractory or
yeah.
chiropracticism, whatever you call it, which like doesn't have a kind of evidential basis to it, but people get something, but people like it because like there's very few places in life these days where you go in, like if you go to the actual doctor, you've got 10 minutes to like say your thing and go, whereas
Yeah.
if you go to the chiropractor, you've got half an hour where someone goes like, oh, how are you, and like puts their
Yeah.
hands on you and like care, like sort of fusses over you for a little bit of time. And there's almost like an equivalent thing of like, you know, you're going up to someone with a microphone and a camera which looks proper, which to some people is suspicious, but like to others is like, oh great, here's my, like, I'm getting the opportunity to um have a have a voice, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it, like, I don't know, it does feel like, I think when I first came across some of this stuff on like Nextdoor, I think I was saying at the beginning, like it feels like a lot of the people that use that app have, through primarily through means that are entirely or through sort of events that are entirely not their fault, have ended up living quite sort of small lives where they're sort of quite disconnected from people. Um, and it does feel like part of this is that that there is like a community there, and there's a thing to be passionate about, and that there's a something to sort of care about in some way.
Yeah. That was absolutely it. It was just they were all there for the same causes, and it brought them all together. And it's kind of like, if that's obviously like what's missing in a lot of people's lives now, especially after the
Mm,
pandemic. So many more people are working at home now anyway.
mm,
And I guess that makes us all a little bit more cut off. And ironically, 15-minute cities is going to be something that builds up those communities again, but not around work, but around, maybe we could build up communities again, but around, hobbies and things we actually like, and going
mm,
to the pub and
mm.
just whatever. Like that's a massive community building thing. But ironically, they've built a community around fighting against that community
Yeah.
building thing. So yeah.
Yeah, even so, like I happen to live near the co-op, and like chocolate bars, and it's nice that I sort of recognize the people that, like, I like to think I would, if there was like a sitcom set in there, that I'd be like a sort of minor recurring character. And it's nice that, like, I don't like necessarily know anyone that works there, but it's like, oh, you all right, yeah, how you going? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
and that is the kind of thing that they're trying to facilitate, I guess. But
mhm.
instead, people are finding it through, because I think there's someone that you talk to who's just like, yeah, I've just met some really nice people through it all as well. Like, and like talks about
Mm.
that as like a big kind of part of it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the end of like the bit where they did like a march down one of the main roads in Oxford, and when they got to the end, there was just like a band playing, and they were all just having a really nice time, like dancing around this band.
Mm,
Um, they were playing The Wall by Pink Floyd, hilariously, of
of
course.
course, yeah.
But no, they were all having a great time, and yeah, just loving life. Yeah.
Is there? I want. Is there like a? Are there protest songs for like 5G and stuff? Like, there has to be like
Mm.
a Billy Bragg, but for global warming being a hoax. Like, that
Oh, there
has to.
probably is. There probably is somewhere.
But
Yeah.
clearly just didn't turn up to this particular protest. Was it quite organ? What? So was there like was it like a march down the high street?
Yeah, so yeah, there were the police were basically trying to usher them down a certain path that they wanted them to go down.
Mm,
They tried to go against the police at one point, I read, but then they eventually conceded and did what the police asked them to do.
for any reason, or
Um,
just to be like
I don't know. Maybe because it
very?
was like "fuck your authority" kind of thing. But no, it was mostly peaceful in the end. There were a couple of little scuffles, but that I personally saw, but they
Mm,
didn't escalate to anything further than "you what, mate," and then
yeah.
people would just be like calm down," and then
I saw a photo of a guy getting told off by the police. He looked like he'd been to like a Madness concert in like 1980 and still had the same like gear, like little pork pie hat on. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I guess I don't know. It's possibly not a demographic that's like I don't know, like
They're too old to be starting
yeah,
fights with people. Let's be honest.
like
They're not gonna win
a
starting a
horse
fight with a
is like,
policeman.
no, I think the horse has got this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, because I think that is worth, I guess, as we like round this off. Like, I guess, like, it is sad that there is like something. There is something at the core of it that is like a sort of human need that you can sort of see where it's come from. Like, I know I saw like a protest right at the beginning of the pandemic. I was in the city centre, so it must have been like, I don't know. So I'm not sure if it was like between lockdowns or like whether we'd not. I can't remember exactly when it was, but relatively early on. Um, of like mostly mums, I think, with like a placard where like sort of the top four things you'd have been like, there's not enough school places, childcare's expensive, and you'd be like, oh, all of this stuff, like there's no investment. You'd be like, oh, yeah, this, and then it's like Boris Johnson's the leader of like a gang of pedophiles, and I was like, oh, so you sort of like get halfway down, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is suddenly done like a 180 and is like a bit a bit less
Yeah.
hinged. Um,
They've
but,
always got to bring in the kids some way as well. Like
mm,
they're just like, how can we bring kids into this? Someone has to be a pedophile. Like there has to be a baby farm. Like some of them literally believe that the World Economic Forum has a baby farm underground, and they're like there's like loads of test tube babies that they're just growing.
for
And
for
they
what purpose? What's the
I don't
end goal?
I don't know. I don't know. Probably some weird fucked up reason that they've made up. And like loads of the people that I interviewed as well started talking about started talking about children for
Mm,
some reason. I think you have to get that sort of visceral emotional reaction out of people, I guess. And as soon as you start talking about kids being exploited, it's like that's gonna get people angry, isn't it? But
mm,
um but yeah, a lot of them would start talking about kids that had gone missing over the pandemic and sort of implying somehow that Klaus Schwab and other members of the WEF had been kidnapping them.
stealing their children.
Yeah, just it was just based in like um no evidence, but they all have their own media that they consume. Like there's people holding out giving out light papers. I don't know if you've seen that before, but there's this
I saw a
paper
clip of
called
it in the. But is that like, what does that?
it's basically an a sort of newsletter, which is just it just gives information on every conspiracy under the sun. It's just all in there. It's just all terrible, terrible conspiracy smoothie kind of stuff. Yeah.
Because it is that, like, I think there's a guy in that you talk. I'm not sure if you talk to him, whether he's just around, that just goes like whatever you see on the news, like 180 it, and it's just
Yeah.
like that thing of like once you start, like you have to just, it's just like opposite day, I guess. Like
Yeah.
seems to be the, like it'd be interesting if there was like one thing that they didn't go in for. They were like, no, but the moon landings, like
Mm.
100% real. They're real. Everything else is nuts, um, but no, but I think what the video you made did really well is that you can see that like um you can see that like that sort of need that it's fulfilling, and I don't know, I do have sympathy for that, I guess. But it's, I guess, how do you build um I mean, like you've said, like actually this would solve many of those problems of maybe you would have a town hall slightly nearer you that had, I
Mm.
don't know, whatever,
Clubs and things. Yeah.
short mat bowls and
Reading club. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever and the kids could play in the street again. But
Yeah.
no, thank you for chatting to me about 10-minute cities.
It's been fun.
If 15-minute cities even.
15-minute
think I
cities.
just I made the prison
Oh
smaller.
no, you made this prisons
Than
even
it-
smaller.
That's the next step. If people are listening and would like to find you on the internet because for whatever reason they have yet to find your fantastic videos, how would they do that?
I'm on YouTube as Mooncat, Munecat. I'm also on Twitch now as well. On there, I'm Mooncat Music because I couldn't get Mooncat.
Who's got that?
I don't know, some randomer.
Yeah.
And I'm also Mooncat Music on Twitter and Mooncat Music on Instagram as well. That's where I spend most of my time, not touching any grass and just posting or streaming.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening. If there is anybody there.
Is there anybody there?
Thanks so much for listening to my chat with Mooncat. I hope you enjoyed it. As I mentioned during the show, if you want to be among the first to get access to new episodes of Induction, then you can do so by signing up to my premium streaming service, Nebula. To get the best deal on Nebula while supporting us to make more episodes like this one, you can head to nebula.tv/induction. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Induction.